for a second. I wanted to get your advice and figured your audience might enjoy the conversation.
Dude, they always, it's weird. I've had a bunch of conversations with people. I'm like, if I would have recorded that, it would have been my next product.
So the main thing, and so you guys, Charles and I talk like probably once or twice a week, and every now and then he shares something with me, and I share something with him, and I'm like, man, we should record these conversations, and so thought we'd do a little 5-minute thing. So I wanted to show Charles my account, my ClickFunnels account, and I think you can see the screen.
Yep.
Okay, so basically, this is your average funnel. You've got your $97 front-end product, a much higher upsell, that kind of thing. The main thing, though, that is missing from this, so they see the order page. If they buy, then they're going to see this upsell, and then all this stuff. The main thing that is not here, though, is a pre-selling page. And I know Charles is one of the experts at this. Now, you could call this a whole bunch of stuff. You could call it education-based marketing. You could call it a native ad. You could call it, any kind of thing. Now, the main objection of this is basically before they see this page, before they see this, this, hey, I'm selling you something here. We want to put them into a state of belief where we raise their expectations, we raise their desires, and we lower their doubts. And one of the main ways we do that is through articles like this. David Ogilvy was one of the masters at creating these pre-sale pages or pre-framing or education-based content, and this is just and I see this all the time. And so that's kind of why I wanted to talk to Charles about it, is because most of the clients that I work with, I've worked with like Frank Kern, digital marketer, James Wedmore, all these different people, and they have clients that come to me, like their customers. And most of the time what I look at and review is there's not enough proof in the claims that people make. There's not enough... it's just sort of like, here's our product, you should buy it. And so that's why these pages are so effective. Now, you see this paragraph right here. Ogilvy and Mather has created over... $1 billion worth of advertising and spent almost $5 million tracking the results. Here with all the dogmation of brevity are 38 things we have learned. And I'm not really going to go through the article other than to say this is all teaching and educating, and what Frank Kern would call creating goodwill with your marketplace. And so, Charles, I wanted to talk to you about. Of course, Charles, you're not a mind reader, but do you think having something like this before they see that sales page would be far more effective, especially for converting a cold audience?
Oh, it would be huge, and I think that's one of the biggest issues we realize that only over the past couple of years. 5 or 10 years ago, we pretty much said, I got a product, here it is, and there was a massive stampede to buy it. Mm-hmm. There wasn't that many products, wasn't that much noise in the marketplace, and you pretty much knew everybody you were buying from. As we have gotten noisier, there are more marketers, bigger claims. I mean, if you sold 1 million people tomorrow, there's somebody that sold 1,000,001. I mean, so, we've got to the point where we're overwhelmed. The noise is deafening, so we have to look at where do we need to go. And you made a classic example here. David, I mean, these guys spent, we're talking, these guys were spending that kind of money before we were even born. I mean, I think that's the crazy thing. The article that you're looking at, I have no clue how old it is. Obviously pre-internet from that standpoint. And if you were to put that in today's standards, you're probably talking...
like I would say mid-60s.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably talking, that in today's standards, it's probably like spending, like $100 billion. I mean, it's just crazy the difference. You have to educate your articles. Like I'll give an example. I think this is a classic example. A lot of people write articles and go, I've got an article and that's a pre-sale page. That's not a pre-sale page. That's like saying, I got a race car and it's a Yugo. Just because it's a car doesn't make it a race car. By using those pre-selling pages and that content, education market, however you like to look at it, when your prospects read that, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, you make them aware of the problem, you offer them a solution to the problem, and you educate them, and you win that trust. If we walked up onto the street and said, hey, I can show you a simple way to build an email list of 300,000 people in 30 days, you'd probably get punched, slapped, mace, call the police, But if you were given a speech at a local chamber of commerce and you talk about how you can generate leads and sales and profits for local business because you've educated that prospect, you've given them content, you would literally be able to close an entire room of people.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Also, I was going to do another email on I was looking at Gary Bencivenga's stuff. Who, if you guys don't know who Gary Bencivenga is, he's probably the what many people have called the greatest living sales copywriter alive. He did a bunch of stuff for a lot of the different, I think it was either Rodale or Boardroom. I'm not totally familiar with his history, so if you guys are experts on this call, forgive me. But basically, there was a promotion back in the day, and it said, the headline was, Why Silver May Rise Sharply. And he went up to his, the guy, I think Daniel or David Rosenthal, I'm getting all the names wrong, but basically, he went up to the head guy and said, why didn't you say it will rise sharply? It'd be much more effective. And he's like, look, you don't want to overpromise. It's like basically because it underpromised why silver may rise sharply, it was much more believable. It wasn't like overpromising. It wasn't like making hypey claims. It wasn't, and it was much more educational. It was like why it may rise, right? So it was much more believable because it was so low key, and it did a lot better. I think they actually split tested may rise with will rise, and so it was just much more of a softer type of thing. And that's one thing I see a lot of is we're having to tone down a lot of the claims with Facebook and all these other compliance people. Charles, I even think you did it with advanced strategies for for effective media buying. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like 17 ways to make a fortune with media buying or 3 new killer tips to flood your inbox with new leads. It was advanced strategies for media buying. Mm-hmm. And that was much more believable because it wasn't, well, number one, it wasn't as sexy, but that doesn't really matter because it's like we're not into making things sexy. We're into spending $1 and taking out $3. And so I think using these type of pages, I think you've got one too, Charles. Do you want to look at that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. How do I transfer screens over to me?
Hold on one second. All right, I stopped sharing my screen. And so with you listening on the call, I think this is important because if you look at this type of advertisement, how to create advertising that sells, it's all content based, and it's split up with subheads. It's got paragraphs. It's got these subheads. Actually, you can't see my screen anymore, but the call to action is at the very end of the article, and so it's just education-based marketing. It works really well. I mean, Todd Brown talks about it a lot. Charles talks about it. I'm starting to talk more about it because we're gonna need this type of stuff. We're gonna need this type of stuff to make sales moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that we need to look at is from a content standpoint. And when this was when David Ogilvy, those guys, they're really the only format they really had was a print format. Print or radio or TV. And for them to do anything, it cost some serious money. I mean, it wasn't something that they would just say, "Hey, honey, I'm going to try this today. Let's go have some fun." That really wasn't the case, and because of that, we can really test things that they can only imagine. Now, I'm going to show you show you a couple examples of this. We can actually all of a sudden take what they're used and turn it into really a multimedia format. And while many people don't believe this is they have a strict idea of oh my gosh, it must be X, it must be Y, it must be Z. That's kind of kind of the typical scenario. We often overlook that for our prospects, this can be something completely different. I'm going to actually show you a pre-sale page. And can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. This is one that has been running very successfully for a number of years. It's for a product called Instaflex. And for those of you who aren't familiar, if you just look at this picture, you would say, okay, it looks like a man, probably, man's got pain. Well, the whole issue here is the pre-sale page is geared toward a male. Now, as you're reading the page, the first thing they have to do, if you notice, there's like a lack of hype. How to relieve your joint pain. Most of the time, we've got so hypey with everything else we do, a lot of your advanced customers look at this stuff and they go, man, I already seen that crap. I don't need that. We don't need to hype on the pre-sale page. We need to basically create goodwill and lead to the sale. Right. Maybe the sales page could be a little more aggressive, but that's where it becomes aggressive. It doesn't need to be aggressive on the content. So the name of the blog is Keep On Moving, Healthy Living for Your Joints. Also, we've got a date here which actually increases a lot of credibility. And by the way, we actually have templates inside of lead pages. We've got free pre-selling templates, so we can show you some in there. But if you notice, it says how to relieve your joint pain. It doesn't say how to get rich, how to regrow your hair, how to get thinner. It only says one thing, how to relieve your joint pain. And, right. And the traffic is, or the magic is, the only people coming to this page are typically sent from a paid ad or a referral link. And they know they're coming for joint pain. They're not coming for any other ailment. And one of the beautiful things about these pre-sale pages, if you look at it, are you suffering from joint pain? The prospect says yes. Do your knees, hip, elbows, and hands cry out in discomfort? I mean, cry out in discomfort is so much better than are you in pain? But the answer is yes. I'm in discomfort. How often does your joint pain slow you down? Every question in the first sentence is leading you to yes, yes, and yes. If your prospect has any time to say no in this, it falls apart. If he doesn't have joint pain, why am I going to read this?
So right. So you're basically getting him to make those micro agreements and micro commitments, which, some people have argued like, well, that doesn't really matter, or that, I think it does make a big difference in getting them to become more receptive to whatever they're about to read next.
Absolutely, and it's really interesting. Going back to one of the classic advertising. Also, I'm not a beer drinker, but there's Pat's Blue Ribbon. I think it's Pat's Blue Ribbon. They initially talked about, this was like number 4, like one of the lower selling beers, and one of the
Schlitz beer.
Yeah, as you can tell, me and Lawton are really alcoholics here because we're like, what's the name of the beer?
Yeah.
But interesting, they made the star of that ad talking about how their beer is sterilized and bottled cold and all this stuff. So the star of the entire ad became the bottling process. With this pre-selling page, it's education. They're literally making the star of this particular product the ingredients and everything that goes along with it. And what happens when you get to that point, it makes everything else, and unfortunately I would be taking us to a domain that doesn't work. When you're looking at that, it really creates a very positive, you read it, you don't perceive it to be advertising, it's education, and education leads to the sale. And that's where so many people make the mistake. And, and I'm just giving an example. If I come up to a landing page, I don't know you from Adam's House Cat, I've never heard of you. Only thing I know is you're selling me a product. My guard is up. I mean, we're inherently, we're like, maybe it's going to be legit, maybe it's not, doesn't make a difference. But if you were to read an article and it appears to be a third party, it's pre-framing, giving you education, when you get to that sales page, your resistance is exponentially lower. And because of that, you have the ability to sell so much more, where most people are really asking their prospects to believe, and I think this is in every niche that we're dealing with, we're often asking our prospects to believe stuff about us that we don't know. We have no claims. We're saying, hey, just trust me and it's going to be okay. Your prospects don't trust you. We're at a place.
People assume so much, and I think that's the danger of, if I do the hard work, it's almost like it's almost like when we start marketing, we think there's some camera in the room that like, haven't you seen how hard I've worked on this, and haven't you seen like how much I believe in this, and that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And one of the things that we need to look at is, Lawton, what do you think conversions are? As a general rule, let's say a $97 product, what would you expect conversion numbers to actually be? if that made, and I know that's kind of an open-ended and a very broad question.
Yeah, I mean, like 1 to 3%. I mean, maybe with, of course, with warm or hot people that know you, it'd be much higher than that probably. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting 1% or around 1%, I mean, that's an industry standard. You'd probably be happy with that.
And it's funny because like when you use pre-selling, everything else becomes completely different. Your numbers are exponentially higher. Now, I know this is not an example that a lot of people would think about, but I think it's a classic example. When you were looking many, many years ago, when the FTC kind of started really cracking down, people were selling a lot of products with completely bogus fake stories. They weren't pre-sale pages. They were basically bogus stories. There was no education. It was the same girl, same image, same everything. But because they basically created that relationship on that page, their conversions for the products were just exponentially higher. And, that's where so many people don't realize it makes a big difference. It absolutely makes a huge difference. If you can just get the prospect, get them pre-framed correctly, everything else is almost, I hate to say it, irrelevant. You don't have to do all the stuff that everybody else does.
Right. And I noticed that. I mean, the simple subject line secrets that I did with Bond Halbert, that's about a 5-minute VSL, a video sales letter. And there's about 8 paragraphs of copy. And then it's like, hey, buy this thing for $97. And because I was emailing my list who knew me, and I was able to frame messages that educated them beforehand, it converted a lot better than, let's say, I start doing cold traffic. I'm going to have to do a lot more work on the front end to educate that cold person who doesn't know me. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people ask you this question, Charles. How much pre-selling do you have to do to sell a $300 product?
And I think that's one of those things. It's how much belief do they need?
Right.
And this is a classic example of this, and I'm going to bring over one of my own, some of my own stats right here over in Visual Website Optimizer. This is selling for this particular product. It is, I think $97, either $177. I should probably look at the price point of it. But our conversions at this point were 5.36 and 5.9 for product, and we had this a mixture of cold traffic, email traffic. So my own house list. So it's a total mixture. I should really have had them separated. But the interesting thing is, we're selling not a high-end product, but it's a higher than normal expected conversion. What we did, we basically used a pre-sale video.
Okay.
Where we created literally content. My whole concept was, if you were to watch just a 5-minute video talking about, it just educated you, and by the way, would you like to buy the product? Click the link below. I mean, in truth of the matter, I think the sales page may have been irrelevant. We had sold them at that point to the point where they were ready. We showed them proof. We gave them content. We led them to the sale. And that's where so many people are making a mistake. That pre-sale page, its job is to get you in the right frame of mind to move you to the sale. It's not to, do all these other wonderful things. And that can even be, any kind of content. I think digital marketer does a great job of producing content that, appears to be just this very long, educational blog post. But as you read it, it constantly, literally every few paragraphs, leads to the sale.
Right.
And I think so many people make the mistake of going, well, it doesn't work. And, Lawton, can you mind if I show you just a simple campaign of how much, and this is just totally kind of like something that most people probably aren't going to quite grasp, but I will show you anyway. It's a campaign that we're just started up. Lawton, do you think it's cheaper to send traffic to content, or do you think it's cheaper to send traffic to a buy my page right now product?
It's cheaper to send traffic to content.
And I'm going to go ahead and just show you, this is a particular campaign. We're going to go ahead and look at it. This is obviously in AdWords. It's a very low budget, and we don't have any conversion tracking set up. This is something that's just literally, as you see, it's just getting started. We're paying, obviously, in AdWords, and we have, this is for worldwide, and I'll also show you what U.S. traffic is. Traffic to our podcast, which our podcast really is an audio pre-sale. Every time we're talking, we're leading somebody to take an action. It's not, we don't produce podcasts for the sake of producing a podcast. We make a podcast to lead you to buy something.
Yeah, look, Mom. Yeah.
And give this example for our content that is content. We're paying 8 cents here per click, 11 cent, 10 cent, 10 cent. We have 419 clicks for 8 cents a click. $31. We've got 419 clicks because it is content.
Right, and so that goes to that's an ad that goes to download the podcast, or
actually it goes to the website so they can opt in and listen to the podcast.
Okay, I got you.
And it's one of those things where, and if we go to the U.S. traffic isn't going to be that much more expensive.
Right.
The beauty of it is, all the different networks, Facebook, AdWords, all these places realize that if you as an advertiser have a pre-sale page, you're not alienating the audience. You're not making them mad. It's content. It's education. It's entertainment to an extent. And because of that, they don't have a problem giving you really cheap clicks. Right. Because it's great for their user experience.
Yeah.
But when you send people, and just to prove the point, when you send people over here to literally, would you please opt in and give me your name and email? Our cost per click goes up exponentially. Let's just look at this cost per click, 75 cents. And this is a current AdWords campaign. Here's another example. Cost per click, $3.45 going to a squeeze page, $2.99 going to a squeeze page.
Right. But, so it's almost like you're needlessly spending way more money than you have to when you try to just take away that education based part.
Absolutely. Here we go into a U.S. podcast for U.S., Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland. We're paying 18. I mean, this is like today's stats. We're paying 18 cents per click.
Dang.
Where if we scroll down to where we're actually saying fork over your, that's why these campaigns are paused. We tried them at different budgets, and going to this point, we can't pay $2.99 per click. We can't pay $3.45 per click. Going to a squeeze page. Yet, going to content, we're paying pennies.
Yeah.
And that is the big difference. Yeah. Facebook, all these places, they know that, if you've got a pre-sale, how many people have ever landed on a pre-sale page and go, man, this is crap. I'm going to give it a negative score. Where's that, unsmiley face in Facebook? I don't like this. That doesn't happen. It's like I read content. I either liked it or didn't, but it was content. And it's not saying fork over name and email.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I think and we're not any, and of course, some of this stuff, maybe you might have higher conversions if you do send them straight to a squeeze page type of thing. I think every scenario is different. Every market is different. Your market for some reason might hate pre-sale content. I don't know why they would, but whatever. So take everything with a grain of salt. But at the same time, we think 99% of the time you're going to have a lot more sales, a lot more goodwill in the marketplace, and a lot more people buying and believing what you have to say if you start to pre-sell, using those, those type of, do you have joint pain? Or would you like to relieve your joint pain? And so, and I'm not an expert on Facebook, but basically, I don't think Facebook will ban you from asking a question in your ad.
You're right. Now, there's one thing to keep in mind, and this is something that we're learning, and I think I had to learn this the hard way. I'm going to scroll down and show you a video. If you notice, this is a content video right here. Mm-hmm. Just give it a second. And we're basically starting out as content. And the whole purpose of this content video is to literally pre-sell our prospects. We made a video. We're going to have it transcribed. We basically are creating literally a video, a transcription, and it's really going to pre-sell a coaching program. I mean, we're asking people for $24,000 a year for this coaching program, and we're using a pre-sale video to get that. So I hear people go, well, that doesn't work at my niche. I'm like, there may be a few niches somewhere where people completely, utterly hate words, hate reading,
right? And
would rather have it etched in a stone tablet somewhere. Maybe that's the case, but we're finding just going out and doing that kind of stuff, creating that content, And we even did something that was rather tricky, and I think Lawton will hopefully give me some applause for this one. He may say it's the dumbest thing ever. One of the things that we're noticing is sending prospects here. I'm going to go to a different landing page or different Facebook page. One of the things that we noticed is like whenever we send our prospects to like a standard VSL, how many of us have gotten to a VSL? You know it's a VSL. You watch it, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. We actually created content and we put it in a VSL. Look, it's like, hey, we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. We give a headline. We're literally creating what appears to be a VSL, but it gives nothing but content.
Yeah.
And what's happening, we're trying to literally.
So you're retraining them to
list,
actually.
Everybody's list has been conditioned.
Right. To like not watch or to you're basically trying to recondition them to not expect the sales message.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're really, getting the format that you would expect in the VSL, but it's really pre-selling content that leads to a sale. And our goal is once they see this, it's going to create, hopefully a positive expectancy. You never necessarily know, but the key to making all this work is to have your prospects knowing you, like, and you trust you, pre-selling them, using content, education marketing, getting them to buy.
So, Charles, where can they get involved? Like, if they wanted to learn how to do this, can they sign up for that 7-day thing? Like, where can they go?
Absolutely. The easiest way to do it is go to the MediaBuyerAssociation.com. And in there, because we're Google compliant, we've got a free lesson, which will basically be a 7-day media buyer boot camp. It's video based. And there again, Lawton, going back to like, how do we sell? We have discovered the days of give me your name and email or die are over. We're literally, when we're getting that name and email, we're asking people for, hey, this is what you're getting on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. We're discovering that even though our opt-in percentage is lower, because everything else is better. Our opt-in percentage is lower, but the earnings per click from the leads are exponentially higher. Most importantly, because it's not a blind type opt-in, we're getting real name, real email, real engagement.
And I'll kind of say that till those cows come home. Is like, I don't care how many people opt in. I mean, obviously, your ego and your insecurity wants as many people to opt in and many people to buy and many people to do this as possible. But really, paid advertising and media buying is all about ROI. It's like if I gave Charles $1 and he gave me $20. I wouldn't really care if Charles liked me or not, or if Charles thought I was a cool person. I just wanted to keep that going for as long as possible,
Absolutely, and and that's one of those things where I think a lot of us make the mistake of when our first interaction with somebody is an opt-in page, and there's one thing if it's endorsed. I send an email, go opt in to Lawton's list. He's got great content, you'll love it. That's an endorsement.
Right.
But there's only so many endorsements you're going to get on any given day, any period. And what do you do after that? The reality of it is when you're looking, and especially like when you're looking at trying to scale a business, and if you don't have some source of traffic that is relatively cold, you're not going to be able to do it. And when you're selling to cold traffic, they don't know you from Adam's house cat. We have the assumption, I'm such and such. Everybody knows me. There are people that don't know who Frank Kern is today. So with that said, we're finding that the people that give us our name and emails for these longer type, and we do I won't say a pre-sale, but we're basically selling them on what they're getting for 7 days.
Right.
And the most important thing is and I'll just show you this. I think this is really, really interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and what we discovered was when we took people, and from way too much split testing, when we take people to a thank you page and we tell them to go check their email to get their download, while there's nothing wrong with that, to a large extent, they're like, I just opted in. It literally, we're taking people from the opt-in, in this case, to a video which will allow them to buy. And in the older days, we would use a VSL, no video, no controls, no nothing. You just watch the video. What we've discovered to be Google compliant, we've got full menu, full navigation, full video controls. Mm-hmm. This literally gives us a better earnings per click.
Right.
Because we're not trapping that user in. Because like if we do the pre-sale page and we do everything right, and then we get to the where we make a sale and then we just go off the deep end, your prospects are thinking, you just broke that trust that you built.
Yeah. And so they can go to the. Give me that URL one more time.
Okay, it is, and it's constantly changing. In the menu, it's free lesson. It's on MediaBuyerAssociation.com. And just click on that and click on the free lesson, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Very cool.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.